Steve, thank you so much for taking the opportunity in order to join us today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thanks so much, Kaylin. Awesome to be here with you.
Yeah. And so for those of you guys who don't know, if you ever go out and do a Google on who are some of the best kettlebell fitness instructors, I did this. I did a Google, and a big chunk of them have been certified by your organization, Steve, and you yourself are a pioneer within kettlebell fitness training. Can you tell us a little bit about your story? How long you've been working within fitness? How you landed in the world of fitness as a career, and yeah, and how you founded the organization?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for asking. So, yeah, as far as getting in fitness, well, I'll be 51 next week. So I've really been doing fitness literally almost my entire life. I would say that the formal start of my journey when I was 12 years old, I got immersed into the Chinese martial arts. And I had my older brothers brought me into the martial arts, and that became my all day, every day lifestyle. And that first gave me the introduction of studying a movement culture. As a younger kid, I was athletic, running around, playing different sports, baseball and so on. I came out to California in 1982 from the East Coast, got involved in the martial arts, and that was serious study. And then as a teenager, starting when I was 15, so kind of 3 years, I started teaching a children's kung fu class at the local rec center out here in San Diego. And then, from throughout my entire teenage years, I started teaching more and more, teaching the adults. By the time I was 19, I was running my sifu. The sifu is like the teacher in the Chinese. They call the sifu, right? It's like the sensei. I was running his courses. So really from the age of starting at 15 professionally until I was in my late 20s, that was my full-time job, teaching martial arts and practicing martial arts, where I was literally, 8 to 10 hours a day. I was at the Kung Fu school training, doing something. And then in my late 20s, it kind of dawned on me that I'm not going to be teaching Kung Fu as my career for the rest of my life. Okay. It was kind of a break. There was an interruption in the force. Okay. So at that point, I thought, what am I going to do now? And so I decided to go to university. I went to university a little bit later. I was 27, and I ended up getting my degree in kinesiology. And for those that don't know what kinesiology, it's a fancy name for PE that they call kinesiology now, right? So because back in the a little bit earlier days, if you told your parents, oh, I'm going to be a gym teacher, they're like, come on, do something with your life, right? Be an attorney, this is going back, entered school in the 90s. So more than 20 years ago. And, so kinesiology. And then when I was coming out of university at San Diego State, I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? The obvious path is, okay, you're going to go into personal training. So I hadn't really been a personal trainer, but I had taught martial arts for many years, prior to this. So I look, what's the best places around town where so I started doing personal training. And I did that for about a year. I didn't really love it because it was sort of a corporate environment where, you got to walk around and try to sell people training sessions. And that wasn't my vibe. So I decided, well, I'm going to do in-home and start training because I was working, in the wealthy areas, and all these people were people that had money, and, they had gyms at home and things like this. Now, in this time, we're talking about 2001, kettlebells just came on the scene. So I saw the kettlebell, and the first kettlebells, if you know anything about kettlebells, it did not come on in a traditional channel, meaning you didn't see them at the sporting goods stores. It came on online, because this was really the beginning era where online commerce, and specifically where online commerce for fitness, that was the beginning of that era. where people was actually selling fitness online. And, so the kettlebell came out of that. It was non-traditional. And the first advertisements were in martial art catalog. And so I saw these kettlebell and I said, wow, this looks interesting. This made sense. And as a martial artist, it appealed to me because I was always looking for ways to train the whole body as an integrated manner, going to 24-hour fitness and doing kind of the bodybuilding. And it never really felt like it informed or enhanced the martial art practice, because it was more of an isolation, where martial arts is you're using your entire body. So the kettlebell really made sense. And so I eventually got some kettlebells and just, learned on my own. I saw that there was an organization at that time called Dragon Door. So I went to their course and I ended up excelling in that. Just the history, if you follow kettlebell, the guy who really started the market, 20 years ago is Pavel Tsatsouline. He was the first guy that started teaching it in America. So I connected with Pavel. He immediately recognized, my talent, or I don't want to say talent, but my background in terms as a martial artist. So I was able to learn the kettlebells very quickly. There's a lot of things I already understood, stance, and mobility and these. And so I was a very early adapter in that. And I started working with Pavel, helping him to teach his courses. And, little by little, the kettlebell started to explode. I started doing seminars back in 2004, all around the US. And I had actually put together a little video called Full Contact Kettlebells, where I was combining kettlebell movements with martial art movements. Set up a little website, 2 pages, an opening page and a shopping cart. And I didn't really have any knowledge of how to do it. I was just figuring it out as I was going along. So I started getting people ordering my DVD online. And then some of them were like, oh, I love your DVD. I have a gym out here in, Massachusetts. Can you come out and do a seminar? And that got it started. And then I was doing seminars in all these different places around the country. I ended up doing a more extensive video series. I did a really big video, which was the biggest, and probably still, because now we're not even DVD era has passed. But this, for some of the younger listeners, this gives you an idea of how long I've been in this game, where we were actually making DVDs, and that was very popular. There was no digital download yet. So I made a DVD, created a DVD called the Encyclopedia of Kettlebell, which was 9 hours, almost 200 different exercises. And that opened up the global market to me, where now global customers, from Europe and other places were like, oh, I love what you're doing. I got a gym out here in London. Are you interested? And back then I didn't really have a business plan. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go around the world. So it fit into that kind of ideal. And I had the opportunity with the kettlebell, where literally people were flying me to different countries around the world. And I was, so I stuck with that for many, many years. And, up until 2020, when the COVID pandemic came, I was, for more than 15 years, I was flying around the world, teaching in more than 70 countries. And that's a lot of different places, 6 continents, every continent other than Antarctica. And, so recently with the COVID, things changed, and I've transitioned along with it. We have to be adaptable. So I'm still providing education, and I'm providing it online. And so that, that's a very long condensed version of my background. So it's an integration of martial art training with functional fitness. The kettlebell is really my tool of choice, but of course that's integrated with body weight movement and breathing exercise and mobility and flexibility and, other handheld tools, which we can call usually referred to as unconventional training. So you have things like the mace bell and the club bell, and TRX and all these other simple handheld tools that we can use them together. And now we have these functional gyms, which is pretty commonplace. but it wasn't very long ago where that was not commonplace. You go back 20 years and it was pretty much the big box gyms, or you go to Gold's gyms or 24-hour fitness or Bally's or one of the, and you do you do the machines, you do the free weights. There was no kettlebells, there was no mace, there was no, it wasn't even Zumba. I think Taibo was what was, trendy back then, so
Good old Billy
that
Legs.
covers a kind of an era where fitness has really evolved in the way in what the consumer is interested in, and even just the education level that the average consumer has as far as how to train and tools. It's a very exciting era.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your background. And there's a lot in there as well that we can potentially jump into. I think one of the things that you brought up is how the kettlebell was incorporated into your lifestyle at the time, which is martial arts, and how it catered to movement rather than isolation. Can you share a little bit about how kettlebell training is important to an overall fitness program?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, there's always priorities, and I'm never someone, my interest is always the relentless pursuit of better. So I'm never coming from a dogma or a specific agenda where it becomes about protecting the method. My interest is in improving, and the starting point for me was always myself. So as a martial artist, it was about how can I enhance my skills, and the kettlebell attracted me to that, and I noticed how it was complementary. And then the other aspect is, as a teacher and as a coach, it was how can I become a more effective communicator for this incredible system and this incredible tool that benefits me so much. How can I more effectively teach that to other people, and especially fitness pros, where the fitness professionals are responsible for providing good information, for providing safe, not hurting people, not beating people up. They come to get in shape, and you can't hurt them, right? You have to guide them, and it has to be done in a progressive manner where there's, measurable progress. And so, the technique of it, and making sure that we're doing things effectively, which also means safely, so that you can continue with it over time without injuring and causing damage. So that's what really attracted me is the fact that with kettlebell, it's ground based and the movements are integrated, meaning it's really about how am I using my body mass and how am I coordinating my body, connecting my arm with my body so that I can use the strength of the body, the natural strength, which is the architecture. Okay, so your posture, your legs, your back, your trunk. Okay, these are the driving muscles. It's not movements coming from the arm, right? And so it's not a comparison, because bodybuilding is still popular today. In fact, it may be more popular than ever, but the metrics have shifted, and so a lot of times people are building their body, but they want a lean athletic look. They don't want to necessarily be giant and bulky, so it's still bodybuilding, but because to be honest, aesthetics is always a consideration.
Yeah.
Like people want to look better, they want to feel better, but it wouldn't be honest to say, oh, I don't care about how I look, I just want to get strong. That's not most people, And so, the kettlebell, if you talk about priorities, what's the most important thing? And that can differ, so someone's a power lifter, the most important thing is maximal strength. They want to move heavier and heavier weight. If someone's a marathon runner, the most important thing is endurance, right? And if someone is a martial artist, the most important thing is skill, and all of these priorities can be measured ultimately in performance. However, if we're looking at sort of the broad audience, like everybody, and we're not focusing on sport, or we're not focusing on a specific aesthetic goal, then it's just become, you want to be overall better. So that means you want to be stronger, but you want to have more endurance, you want to have more mobility, you want to be more flexible, you want to be more resilient, you know, you want to maybe have less pain. And then what about accuracy, and what about coordination, and what about balance? You know, so there's many different attributes we can look at, and we don't need to argue, oh, balance is more important. No, strength is more important. No, and they're all important, but they're important to different degrees and also in different stages of life. Because if I'm an 18-year-old kid, if I'm an 18-year-old guy, maybe mass or strength is my priority. But if I'm 80 years old, maybe endurance is even more important than maximal strength, or maybe balance is more important, you know. And so, you know, the point is that one of the beauties of kettlebell is it addresses really all the different acts. So we're increasing strength, we're also increasing endurance, we're also increasing mobility. And then there's the planes of motion. So, you know, we're not fixed just on the sagittal. We have rotational movements. We have frontal, sagittal. We're changing base. And it can incorporate with locomotion. So we can use the kettlebell in a way to train what I call loaded mobility, where, you know, one of the main limitations of traditional strength training, if you're training with a bar, and it could be a dumbbell, a barbell, but even things like sandbags, and even if you're limited with kettlebell and traditional, one of the limitations is that you're standing in one place. You go to the gym, you stand in one place and you do your movements, and then, right? And so in the modern world, we exist, especially in the urbans, you know, we exist essentially sitting down a lot in our daily lives. Even active people, it's like, I have an office job, we're sitting in chairs right now, right? So we're sitting in front of our devices, we're sitting at school, we're sitting in the office, you know, we're sitting in the car, we're maybe sitting at home, working in the computer, maybe watching TV. Oh, got to go to the bathroom, you're sitting on the toilet, right? So there's that 90-degree, and that has caused a lot of dysfunction in the human body, because in all of this, you know, I'm interested in all of it, but anthropology, human origins, you know, it's like, where do we come from? Because I'm interested in, you know, in changing thoughts and transforming it. So it's like, where are we going? I like to understand about where did I come from, so I have a better idea about where I'm going.
Yeah.
So I'm studying always the origins, but the human body as an animal, as a physical specimen, we descend from, you know, we're hominids. So the human sapien sapien, right? Homo sapien sapien. You know, the hominids are it goes back more than 100,000 years in the current form, you know, just and so in other words, our bodies haven't really changed from our ancestors hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago. We're still in the same bodies with the same mechanics. But what has changed drastically is the environments that we exist within, you know. And so, you know, the industrial age was only a couple hundred years ago. Prior to the industrial age, we weren't sitting in chairs, and we weren't doing a lot of the things that are now habitual. And, you know, so how that relates to fitness is, people are programming fitness quite because we need to offset the non-active component of the majority of our lives, you know. Whereas as a hunter-gatherer, we're hunting, but we're being hunted, you know, and we're having to defend, and we're having to find food, which means you're having to climb and jump and come under things. And, you know, and so now we say, oh, that's functional movement. But it wasn't so long ago that our ancestors, they weren't working out. They weren't going to the gym. They were just living and existing. And in existing, you were constantly moving and constantly exercising. And, oh my God, there's a wildebeest. Breathing heavy, and oh my God, I better climb up in this tree because that big animal is gonna, you know. Now we have fire. So now people keep back with that big lion's not going to eat you because he's afraid of fire, right?
Mhm.
And now we have the cell phones, but so that's kind of I'm coming out of that, and like, what's the kettlebell? It's very primitive. It's very primitive, and it connects us with that animalistic component, which is who we are, is a part of who we are, even though we're civilized, and even though we shower and we brush our hair and we shave and we do all those things, and in the Roman custom, the basic human aspect, we're still animals. And in many cases, people have forgotten. They've lost contact with their primitive aspect. And so now it's like my back hurts and my shoulder hurts and I have trouble getting out of bed in the morning. It's not inevitable. And there's knowledge and so, what I do is I provide education, physical education. Yes, it's about learning new skills, but a lot of it is about remembering what you already knew. Because if I take a child, he's already a natural athlete. I don't need to take that child and teach him how to squat and teach him how to run and he's doing it. Okay. And yes, we can get stronger and we can get better at it. Whereas if I'm coming into it late, if I had a very inactive childhood and I went straight into the corporate world where it's like I'm sitting in school and now I'm sitting in the office, all of a sudden I'm 40 years old and I haven't really moved since I was 5 years old. And so now my body has forgotten. And so, my job would be different in that scenario. Now it's about, let's do gentle things. Let's figure out how to, start moving and getting in that habit and not killing the person in the beginning, but building them up to where, okay, 3 months down the road, now we can start going more intense. And a year from now, you're going to be a totally different person. Okay. It's going to transform you. And so there's a lot of things that we're working on. We're working on the physiology, but we're working so much on the psychology and the emotional component, because we all have history and we all have stories, and if someone's very heavy, more often than not, they're very heavy because there's a lack of education somewhere. And it's not about intelligence. It's just about it's exposure. So if I'm a person who, and it's not necessarily geographic, but there's geographic components. Urban centers, we get information faster and easier. If I'm in the middle of, say, middle America, I may not have as much education about what a healthy meal looks like,
Yep.
And then we have the challenge of marketing. If I see the message 10,000 times, oh, milk, it does a body good. Milk, it does a body. Oh, milk's good, so I should be drinking milk. Well, is it really good, or is the milk industry, do they want you to believe that it's good? McDonald's, oh, wow, I'm going to go get a McDonald's Happy Meal and it's easy. And these are the challenges we have, so I'm about providing solutions, but we have to do it in a way that is honest and in a way where we have education. Because if it's just, okay, I'm going to do, 10 kettlebell swings and that makes me breathe, yes, that's a part of it. But I'm going to wash that down with a Big Mac and French fries. Well, you're missing an important part of the component. You need to understand, and have that education about how everything comes together. So it's our lifestyle. Okay. Yes, it's how are we exercising, but it's also how are we nourishing ourselves, and then it's our rest, and then it's our stress levels, and it's all the aspects of life where we have to find and maintain a homeostasis, which is a balance. And that's really what I believe, and that's what I advocate. So it's much more than just, hey, come to Steve and he's going to give you a good workout. That's the easiest part of it, because with a kettlebell, you can kill anybody and all you need is 10 minutes. Okay. So if you're looking for that intensity, kettlebell is one of the best things for that. But you know, the physical education is the big picture, and it's about educating so that we are empowered as individuals to make better choices, to develop healthy habits, so that, you know, because one thing I've learned, well, I've learned many things, but one of the key things I've learned about, you know, traveling around the world and teaching in 70 countries over the last 15 years is that we are all more similar than we are different at a fundamental level. So you go to different countries and, you know, there's different languages and different skin tones and, you know, different shapes and sizes and even customs and even beliefs and religions, and in the way that we name things, you know, because a lot of times in the beliefs, they're not as different as people perceive. It's just we have different ways of expressing it. But the point being is that we are all more similar at a fundamental level than we are different. And, you know, I think that most people are just interested in having health and happiness and being able to provide for their family, right? And so if you have a good job and you're able to earn an honest day's living for an honest day's effort, most people are happy with that. Most people are not criminals or looking to steal from someone. You know, most people, if they have the opportunity, will work for a better life. And I believe that, you know, so I'm optimistic about the human potential. You know, but again, it all comes down to education. So that's really, and again, this is a fitness show, so it's like, am I not talking about sets and reps and, you know, loads and rest periods? Those are all factors. But when you've been doing this for, you know, almost 40 years of your life, there's certain things that are just very easy, you know. And the challenge is, you know, for fitness pros like myself and like us and like others, we have to remember that if you've been doing it for a long time, there's things you take for granted. There's things that come easy to you. But if someone's coming at it from a different point of view, they may have a very blessed life, but they may be missing the physical part. And so they're coming to the fitness pro to give them that missing piece. And we can't assume that they know certain things that we may take for granted. You can't assume that that person that drinks a 6-pack of Coke may not even be aware that he's doing it, may not even be aware of the negative effects that it has on all aspects of life, you know. And so finding that balance, you know, so I don't really believe in templates like, okay, you need to do this workout, you need to eat this diet plan. That can help a little bit at the beginning to give structure, but ultimately it's about the self-education where your clients have enough understanding where they can make an intelligent decision for themselves. Like, you know what, I'm not going to eat that something there, that, you know, whatever it is, I'm not going to eat that extra piece of pie, or, you know, I'm not saying you can't enjoy good things, but we have to have balance and we have to prioritize. So if I really want to make an improvement in my health, let's say I want to lose weight, if I really want to do that, I have to understand what is contributing to where I'm at now, that I'm not satisfied with myself, right? I'm not happy with myself. I want to make changes. I have to look clearly at what's contributing to the current state before I can really change states, right? And so it's not a quick fix at all. And I don't believe in the quick fix. I don't endorse them. You know, if it's, yes, there's value in 8-week programs and 10-week programs and 30-day challenges, but those are just to create habits. And it's not going to make a difference in the big picture if you do the 1-month challenge and then you go back to what you were doing before without it transforming your life. If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. There was a lot of awesome things that you shared within there. One is essential. The big thing that I took away from this is just how in life, we were much different in terms of how we engaged with fitness. It was just was life in the past versus what it is now. And when you and I were speaking in preparations from the show, one of the other things that you mentioned to me, which really stuck, in addition to what you were just saying, is now we're in a different era that people, I think you said people retire from fitness at 30, and that really hit me. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and how you see that in our culture?
Yeah, I think there's different contributing factors, but one aspect is the association with sport, and some of this is culture. It depends on the culture too. But I'll just talk about America, for now. In America, it's a sporting culture, but in the sense of as a spectator. And again, for history buffs, it's the Roman model. The Roman model it's the Colosseum. We go to the Colosseum to watch. In US, we have the NFL. You go to the stadium and you watch the players play. It's a spectators. Whereas, if you come from talking about the Western history, if you come from the Greeks were more doers in the sense of like the Olympiad, the Olympics. Whereas the ideal Greek, it was the scholar warrior. So you had an athletic, but you also were trained in the mathematics, and you were trained in the arts, and you were trained in the language. Okay, so anyway, the point being is that in that type of environment, let's say you're a boy and you're non-athletic, so you don't play the sports, you're pretty much non-physical. Right. And so now you're on the scholastic side. But let's say you're an athletic kid and you're playing this sports. A lot of the introduction for people in our culture is through team sports. And so now, I'm 30 years old. My sport career has ended. So I stopped playing, when I'm 18 in high school, or maybe I'm a little better athlete. So I played for 4 years in college. And so now I stop, my career ends at 24, 25, or maybe I'm really good athlete and I am playing pro. Well, now my career ends when I'm 30, 35. And then it's like, I don't have the coach, I don't have to wake up at 5 in the morning to go to practice. I don't have the coach telling me run another lap. And so there's no direction. It's like, you stop, and now you focus on your business life. And now, some of those people, they'll continue working out and they'll go to the gym, or they'll have a gym in their garage or something, and they'll keep working out, right? So that's kind of one big component is it's like the post-athletic career. And then you have, kind of the reverse where people that were non-athletic, and then they get to a certain point in life where it's like, oh, I better start paying attention to my health and fitness. I'm in my 30s and I have 2 kids and have a hard time keeping up with them, and I get tired. So I better, they start taking it serious. And a lot of times they get really into fitness in their middle ages, and that's great because better late than never, but it's not too common where you have someone as a kid, they're running and playing and climbing the trees, and then they continue throughout their life with this activity. That's the ideal scenario where we're active from the beginning all the way till the last breath.
Awesome. And
so that's what I mean by the retire. It's the retire. It's like if it's associated with a group, what happens when the group's not there anymore? Now it becomes self-directed. And if you don't have an upbringing on the self-direction because your background is team sport, you have to find that self-direction. Whereas other kinds of athletes, like if you're a boxer or a martial artist or a runner, that's more self-directed. So you're more than likely to stick with it even after your sporting career is over.
Awesome. Yeah, and maybe coming back to kettlebells, and you as you were going through and explaining, one of the things that you brought up is in now during the time where working out is something that's complementary now to, and not just part of life. You have to find ways in order to build it into life. There's a lot of modalities and that are out there, and different ways that you can train. I think one of the ones that for myself I'm more familiar with, and I think most people are as well, is barbell training and the big five movements like bench, squat, etc. How does kettlebell training differ? What are some of the similarities? What are the benefits, in comparison to some of traditional barbell training?
Uh, at a basic level, they're very complementary in the sense that, I would say the barbell is more simplistic in terms of the ranges of motion, um, and in terms of just starting, because there's no there you're just grabbing it. You're grabbing it, and there's not a lot of manipulation of the hands. Whereas with the kettlebell, I have to be able to grab it with a loose grip, and I have to have the ability to kind of move my hand back and forth inside the handle because of the way the kettlebell's designed with the space between the ball and the handle. There's that window. Okay, with a barbell, you don't have that. You're just holding it. So there's definitely differences in the technical component. There's differences in terms of the way, the kettlebell allows us to hold the arm against the body with the wrist in a neutral position because of how the kettlebell reps. Whereas if I'm doing the same with, say, a barbell or a dumbbell, it's going to be more like this, where the arm's not connected to the body. So that's not to say that kettlebells are superior. They're superior for certain aspects. Barbell is superior for other aspects. So when we talk about the big five, well, the deadlift, the main difference is that with the bar is primarily focused on the overload. That's the real value of the bar, is because when you get to a certain baseline of strength, you can slap some plates on the bar, and now it's heavier and you get stronger in that pattern. The kettlebell, you also have that overload component where it's like, I get used to the 35-pound kettlebell. Now I can go to the 50-pound kettlebell. But it's not as common, because the thing about the kettlebell is it's more focusing on building the volume. So in terms of energy systems, the kettlebell is better suited for high repetition movements. And I'm talking about really high repetition, where maybe you're doing 30 reps or more, 50 reps or more, 100 reps or more, okay, versus 3 reps, 5 reps, 10 reps. Okay, so if we're just make a straight comparison, the barbell is more focused on absolute strength, and the kettlebell is more focused on strength endurance. There's differences in the big five in terms of the way they're performed. So, deadlift, if your goal is to get strong in the deadlift, the barbell is a better tool, because the kettlebell is not going to be heavy enough beyond a certain point. Now if you're very small, if you're a 45-kilogram woman, then probably a 48-kilo kettlebell, that's a heavy kettlebell for you to deadlift, at least early on. Okay, but if you're a full-grown man that's 150 pounds, 200 pounds or more, a 50-pound kettlebell isn't really going to be that challenging to deadlift. So you need to put some weight on the bar and get strong at the deadlift. However, with the kettlebell, we're going to swing, because with a barbell, you can't swing the barbell between your legs. So that kettlebell gives you that posterior loading where it's swinging behind you. And that's really recruiting the backside of the body, the hamstrings, the butt, the lower back, in a way that you're not going to recruit that with the barbell. So in terms of the range of motion that the body is working through, the kettlebell is working through a much larger range of motion. A press is a press, so if you overhead press, you have a barbell, you have kettlebell, not that much different. The hand position is a little different, but very similar. If you get strong pressing kettlebell, that's going to transfer where you're going to get stronger pressing a barbell. Movement like the clean, again, same idea. It's coming vertically from the ground up. With the bar, you're kind of dropping under. It's more of a heavy load. With the kettlebell, it's a sub-maximal load. You're doing it for reps. You're keeping your arm against your body. So that's going to be the main difference in like the snatch, the clean. is that in the kettlebell, you're going to use not a max load, a sub-max load, and you're going to try to build the reps. So you're doing more and more reps. I would use the analogy of running. A heavy barbell would be like running a sprint. Kettlebell would be more like a middle distant race where you're fast, but it's not a sprint, but you're going for a long time.
And I got to ask, with like the education and everything, I have to imagine that probably one of the most important things that you're reviewing in the education is form. And one of the reasons why I bring that up is I was doing a little bit of research in the kettlebells, and what are some reasons some people stay away from it is it seems like a lot of novice people may not have the form built up. So they're trying to pick up heavier kettlebells than usual. They don't have the proper form, and they're putting themselves at risk. So how fundamental is form for the exercises, especially for people that are just getting started?
It's the most fundamental. It's the most fundamental in that you're limited. You're limited by the form. And so there's a saying that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And so we can apply that analogy to the human body in terms of a movement pattern. If we're looking at a movement and we're looking at how that movement is expressed throughout the body, we can call the body a kinetic chain or a movement chain. And so that can be represented by each joint. If we start from the ground up, we have the ankle, the knee, the hip, right? Moving up to the joint. We have the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, the fingers. So in that sense, in the movement chain, if your technique is flawed, there's a weak link in that chain. And so that becomes the limitation where you're only going to go as far as that weak point is capable. And, so, and conversely, if you strengthen the weak link and now you put it into the whole chain, now the entire chain is stronger as a result. So kettlebell technique is paramount, and it is a skill practice, and it is an athletic practice. So like any athletic endeavor, if you're playing basketball and your shot is off, it doesn't matter how hard you try. And it doesn't matter how many reps you do, the ball is not going to go in the basket. Okay. So you're basically just patterning failure. And what we want to do in life and in fitness and in kettlebells is we want to pattern success. Okay. So it's about doing one good rep. And now my body, okay, that's one good rep. And now I do more. Now I repeat. Now I do another rep. And so it's one rep, one rep, one rep, one rep. And I do one rep 50 times. Okay. And so, the most important thing a person can do when they're learning kettlebells is to find a qualified coach. And, so that's going to be the challenge, not just for kettlebells, but kettlebells is more technical than any other type of lifting tool or lifting method. Olympic weightlifting is technical in terms of the sport of Olympic weightlifting. However, the barbell itself as a tool, it's not nearly as technical because you can just grip it and rip it at a basic level. Whereas a kettlebell, you cannot grip it and rip it, because it's spinning in your hand. You got to be able to move that hand. And, some things are best expressed by doing, not by talking about. But, the common mistake here is if it's spinning in the hand. And if it's spinning in the hand, the wrist, I can't sustain this because this is a very sharp angle. The grip's going to get tired. The wrist is going to get tired. And when I'm spinning this, it's going to do this to my hand, and it's going to start tearing the hand, and it's going to start fatiguing the hand. And if you can't hold it, if the grip is tired, now you can't swing it. So you can't exercise with it. And so the grip becomes the weak link. And so we have to learn that execution where you see my wrist is neutral and I'm relaxed. And so now that enables me to sustain the movement where I can start doing many reps as a pattern without, I'm not banging my body like,
Yeah.
So that's where the technique is really crucial, because we should not be hurting ourselves. We should not be injuring ourselves. It's about fitness, but fitness is a component of something larger, which is health, which is a component of something even larger, which is well-being. And in the process of getting fit, if we're injuring ourselves, it's not sustainable, because you might get fit in the process, but now I'm injured and now I have to stop and recover. And so now you lose your fitness. Okay. So yeah, it's super crucial. And, we're at a point where there's a lot of good trainers. I've definitely been very instrumental in getting education out there. But again, I'm one person, and there's people all around the world. And, most people doing kettlebells, they don't have the technical know-how, because they're learning off of, YouTube, and they're maybe don't have the background to know what's correct technique, what's good technique, what's bad technique. And, and I'm not saying I'm the only guy out there. There's very good trainers out there, but they're more rare still, because kettlebell is still, it's known, but it's not widely understood. It's still relatively new, less than 20 years in America, and then most other places around the world, it may be only in the last 5 or 10 years as kettlebell even really made an appearance. So it does take time to it. And that's really what my focus is on. If you're going to learn kettlebells, learn well, learn the technique. And when you learn that in the beginning, you don't really need more coaching. You just need to refine and
Repetition.
practice your skill and just get better at it. So it's not extremely difficult. It's just about learning the correct technique so that you set the right patterns and you set the right habits. And that information is going to stay with somebody, for the rest of their life.
Yeah. One thing super interesting, it's actually from a previous conversation that you had with Kaylin, but when we were kind of prepping for this webinar podcast, this was one of the things that we discussed with each other is you mentioned about the industry, especially you saying you being one of the early ones about 20 years ago. And it was really interesting to hear how your clientele base has changed, right? So I think you had mentioned that when you were first getting into the kettlebells, we saw that these were athletes basically trying to maximize performance. Now you're getting a much more I don't want to call it like an average Joe audience base, where they come with different ambitions, different challenges, etc. So could you maybe talk about that change you saw with the clients between 2001 and 2021?
Yeah, and so part of that is just awareness, to where 2001 almost nobody knew about the kettlebell. It was just coming on the scene, and so I was one of the very few early adapters. So part of it was just awareness in terms of the media or market awareness or consumer awareness. And, part of it has to do with the individual trainer. So in my case, now I'm in my 50s, whereas when I got involved with kettlebells, I was in my early 30s. So my thought process has also changed, and my priorities have also changed, and my values have also changed, at least certain values. And so, when I was starting early in it, it was me making a name for myself, not even having the foresight. I wasn't seeing it as an industry. It was, oh, this is interesting. This looks really cool. And then it was first as a consumer, oh, I like the kettlebell. I love the kettlebell. I'm using it and I'm working and I'm training it. And then from there, it became, well, I need to start integrating this into my practice, into my training practice where I'm going to, as a personal trainer, I'm going to start showing my clients how to use kettlebells. Okay. And then, so in that early stage, it was me, finding my place in this, big world, and so that really was my focus. And as a, young man, it's like, well, I want the strong people to respect me. I want the athletes and the power lifters and the strong people to be like, that guy knows what he's doing. Right. So that was really my focus. And, I could look back and say, well, it was ego. It was more of an ego motivation, but that's also natural because we have egos. The problem is when your ego gets out of control, and it starts burning everything down. But, in that sense, it was from an ego point of view, it's like, I want to be somebody and I want to be respected. So, these strong guys, oh man, that little guy, Steve, he only weighs 160 pounds, but he's very strong and he can lift heavy weights. And, so that was really my focus. And I was successful in doing that. And so then my first clients, it was the athletes, because that's where I was interested in. It was the strength conditioning. I was training some NFL guys locally that, lived in San Diego or played for San Diego. And that was really what I kind of got started in. And that was my passion. And I was killing these guys and doing all kinds of crazy stuff with them because, hey, they're athletes. You can beat them up and they're tough. And, and I was building my resume. And I did trainings for several NFL teams where the 49ers brought me in and I coached their coaching staff, and the San Diego Chargers brought me in and I coached their coaching staff, and I did some work with the Texas Rangers baseball team and the Anaheim Ducks hockey team. And that was early on, and, again, early 2000s. And I was building my resume, and I did a training. I went out to Virginia, and I did a training for the SEAL Team 6, where I trained their team over a couple of days, and so I started filling out my resume by working with these high-level athletes, these high-level operators. And at one point, I was named by Men's Health magazine one of the 100 fittest men of all time. They compiled a list of 100. Number one was Michael Jordan. Number two was Muhammad Ali, and I was somewhere along the number 80 or somewhere in that. Right. So it was these 100 lists, and that was very good for my resume. It kind of put my name, it looks nice. It looks nice on a resume, and it's a good accomplishment. But as I continued, what I found was that the fitness professional really became the main audience. So it wasn't, because the high level athletes, that's just few and far between, and you sort of have to be plugged into that. And so it was the fitness professionals that really became the main audience. That was my opportunity to earn a living by coaching kettlebells. And, so really for many, many years, that was, and as I mentioned at the beginning, I was doing seminars all around the country and then all around the world. And it was mostly fitness professionals that are attending this. They want to be certified. They want to be able to coach kettlebells to their clients. And, and that's still the bulk of my audience is mostly fitness pros. And that's just because from a practical point of view, the person most likely to invest in education is the person that's going to use the education, either for their personal use and or for their professional application. And, in recent, and especially with the COVID, and really just my maturity as a human being, my maturity as a man, and my values in terms of what I want to contribute to society, what my purpose is, what I feel is my contribution to humanity and to society, and I'm too young to talk about legacy, but, at some point you look back and that's what you call your legacies. Like, what did you leave with the world? What was your gift to the world? And so where I'm at is kettlebell has been so amazing for me personally. Okay. From a physical fitness, it's enabled me to stay you know, at a high level fitness at an age where most men are very well past their athletic lives. Professionally, it's allowed me to earn a living doing something that I love for many years, and then being able to provide for my three children, be able to provide for my family, you know, and be able to have a good life. And at the same time, because I know the value of the kettlebell, how much it's helped me, not only has it helped me with the physical, but it has opened the world. It's given me the opportunity to sit here today and speak with you guys. And I never would have had that opportunity. It's given me the opportunity to go to all these different countries and meet, you know, amazing people and try amazing foods and learn about cultures, you know, and that has informed me so much just on a personal level. And you know, what I realize is that it's the principles of what we're doing that are the things that stay with us. So yes, kettlebell's a great tool, and I think almost everybody can do it, but it's just the tool. And the tool is only as useful as the use and the user. So there's things that we learn in doing kettlebell that we can actually take and it can bring, and we can use it in our life, because kettlebell, we have to learn how to control our breathing. It's very cardio intensive. So in the process of learning about your breathing, well, what you're really learning is you have to learn how to stay calm under stress. You have to learn how to stay relaxed under pressure, right? And so that's a very useful, just in terms of a mental and emotional. There's times in life where we're faced with a lot of difficulty. There's times in life where we're faced with a lot of stress. How we handle that, how we meet that, makes all the difference in the world, right? And so I've learned so many things of kettlebell about self-discipline, self-control, that has helped me when, you know, maybe I'm sitting in traffic and I'm having a bad day, and instead of blowing up and losing my mind, it's like, okay, take some breath, calm down, right? Nothing personal, you know. Or getting in a fight with my girlfriend, or, you know, an argument. It's like, you know, you have to be able to utilize that control at unexpected times in life. So there's more than just the physical benefits. And you know, so recently, actually, now my audience is changing a lot. I'm still working with fitness professionals. I still work with athletes at times, but I'm interested in helping everybody. Okay. Because what I realized was that I was sort of just isolating myself, only catering to the capable. Well, if I'm only working with athletes and I'm only working with fitness professionals, those are people that are already fit. So yes, I can help them and I can teach them and I can help them get better, but am I necessarily fundamentally contributing to their lives in a way that's going to transform them? Not necessarily, because you're just, as a trainer, you're just adding another tool into your toolbox. Whereas I have a recent client who, he contacted me a little over a month ago, just said, Steve, you know, I've been fat and out of shape my whole life, and I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to be as fat and as out of shape anymore. Can you help me? And I'm like, yes, I can. So now, you know, and this guy is great. He works hard. He's near 400 pounds, you know, and he kind of lives he lives out in kind of middle America, you know, and I don't know everything about him, but I got to know him in our first discussion and asked some basic questions. And when you have experience, it's not hard to see patterns. And, you know, and I understood that here's a guy that he wants to do better for himself, and very smart guy. And he's probably excellent at what he does in his career, but he hasn't been active his whole life. And he probably grew up, you know, being fed foods that weren't very healthy foods. And it's really nobody's fault, because it's just education. Now, you know, if you grew up, your parents feed you bad food, it's not because they meant to. It's probably just because that's what they were eating and that's what they knew. And that's how we do it. We pass on what we know to our children. So we don't know better. they're not going to know better unless they get it from someone else, right? So it's about, again, education, you know. And so now we're already seeing transformation after only three sessions, because I'm giving them homework and this is what you're going to work on until we meet again in 3 days. And, you know, and so that's very fulfilling for me, because I'm seeing I can really make a huge difference in this person's life. And it's not about the ego, like, oh yeah, you know, I took him and he was 400 pounds and now he's 180 and that's because of me. No, it's not that. I'm a cog in the wheel. I'm you know, contribute to his path, but he still has to do the work. Okay. He wants to make the change. So what I'm doing is I'm providing him with good information, with correct information, and the right amount of inspiration. And because we need that, you know, because the self-concept ties into it. And we have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in our fundamental worth, so that, you know, when we're a little discouraged, we don't give up. And perseverance is the thing. And we have to persevere. And all of us are going to have difficulty in life at times. And all of us are going to have challenges. And, you know, the self-worth has to be solid, so that if we fail, we have the wherewithal to get up and try again and not give up, you know. And as the saying goes, you know, if at first you don't succeed, try again. If you try enough times and you try one more time, the science is such that you're eventually going to succeed. Okay. Now, of course, we have to try in the right ways. And we try for something bad, well, you're going to be successful in getting that bad thing that you probably didn't want. But the point is that, you know, I'm just helping him reshape his life, develop new habits. And, you know, the kettlebell is a fundamental tool to help, because it adds the amount of intensity that he needs to wake up those cells and boost up that metabolism in a way that he's not going to injure himself. Because I can't take a person that's 400 pounds and say, oh yeah, you're going to go walk. I can say, oh, you're going to walk for 30 minutes, but walking is not exercise. Walking is transportation. So the progress is going to be very minuscule. I need intensity. Okay. I need to wake him up. The kettlebell allows him to add that intensity, but in a way that is not injurious to the body, because he's not pounding. So he's not going to hurt his ankle, hurt his knee, hurt his back in the process of trying to get his body weight down. With the kettlebell, you can. Okay. So now 6 months from now, he can probably start running if that's what he wants to do. Right. Because he's lost a lot of weight and gotten rid of a lot of that unnecessary body mass through the kettlebell. So that, you know, that's one example. Another example, there's a guy that I'm working with. He has cerebral palsy. I mean, he's had cerebral palsy his whole life. It's a congenital, you know, and there's certain things his body is contorted in a certain way. Now, I'm not coming at him that he has a disability, because he doesn't come at it that way. He doesn't see it, you know, it's a challenge that he has, and we all have our own challenges. His is one you can see physically, oh, you know, and maybe the first reaction was, oh, poor guy. No, not at all. He doesn't need my sympathy. Okay. I respect him. The fact that here's a guy that has a big challenge. What would I do if my body was like this and I had to exist and take care of myself? You know what I mean? I have a lot of respect for that, you know, and if you have a healthy body, it's such a blessing, you know, you know, and so I have a guy that has this cerebral palsy, and now I'm having to teach him things, and now it's informing me. So I'm learning as much or more as he is, because it's like, what do I have to do to modify this movement or make adjustments to where I can get him to be able to do it in a way that works for his body. And so I have to be open. I can't be rigid, like, no, your foot has to be like that, because maybe his body can't. And so maybe in me trying to force him to do something that his body cannot do, I end up causing a problem or causing an injury. Okay, so there's a huge responsibility as a fitness pro to understand the need of the individual and take it outside of my own preferences. Okay, because yes, I like to do this and I do all these crazy things, but it would be irresponsible for me to expect that you need to be doing those crazy things. I need to understand, where are you at? What's your story? Give me a little background so I understand why you're where you are today. And now we're informed, and now we can set a clear target of where we're going to go in a way that is sustainable, in a way that is digestible. And that's the thing, is we have to not look at the short-term goal of like, oh yeah, I'm going to do it over 8 weeks. That's just the start to get the habit. I want to see where you are a year from now. I want to see where you are 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. Then I want to see where you are again 5 years from now and 10 years from now. And I want to know that that made a positive difference in your life. Okay. And that's my approach. It's about teaching. So you put the information in the person, and now they have the information. It's a part of them, and it always stays with them. So it's not, it doesn't create a dependency where it's like, oh, you know what, I'm out of shape, I don't know what I'm doing, so I need to train twice a week. And as a trainer, I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, twice a week I'm charging this much money, so that's this much money, and you need to train with me twice a week for the rest of your life, because I'm relying upon, I'm relying upon that income that you provide. That's not where I'm coming from. What I'm saying is, I'm going to show you so much that you're going to get to a point where you don't need me anymore, because you needed me at the beginning when you didn't know. Now you know. So now you go with it and you use it and you do good things with it. Okay. Because there's a lot of other people that need my help. So I don't need to be helping the athletes and the great people and the great movers and the fit people that already are in control of their health. Yes, I can help them, but we can spend, 4 hours in a workshop or 5 hours, and I can show you everything you need, and now you're good. But the guy that has a problem getting out of bed, the guy that has a problem, just moving around, that person really needs help, and he needs help with someone who's educated and someone that's sensitive to understand the big picture, and it's not like one is more important. It's just, I guess, as I've gotten older, I've become more aware and more sensitive to the suffering that's out there and to the pain that a lot of people, and I understand that we don't have to suffer and we don't have to be in pain, and we have technology and tools and techniques that we can use to make life better, and of course the physical education is a foundation because we live in the body. So, the mental is important, the spiritual is important, but as a starting point, we can start with the physical, because it's like right here, right now, this is real, and if I'm too much about, the afterlife or the spiritual life, that can be very hard to quantify. Okay. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm saying physical education, if you're in the field and you're a professional, you have a huge responsibility and a huge of opportunity to make a massive positive impact in the world, because we have societies where there's people that are in so much pain, so much dysfunction, in everything that's associated with that, being unhappy, being unhealthy, and that's not the natural condition. That's not the normal state. And it's not something that we should have to accept as the norm, where, oh yeah, it's just life sucks and it's hard and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to, you don't have to suffer. Okay. So that's kind of my big picture to it. And that's why, as you ask, how has it changed? It's changed from just being focused only on myself and my reputation to where I'm very comfortable in the work that I've done and in the legacy that I've created in terms of the body of work. And now it's about, what kind of world am I going to leave for my children and for their children? And, and it's about creating the kind of world that we want to live in for ourselves and for our family and for our friends, and so it's on one hand very selfless because I'm concerned about humanity and I'm concerned about the well-being. And on the other hand, it's the most selfish thing possible because that's what I want for myself. And it's just recognizing that what I want for myself, I want for others. And because I understand that we're all connected in some way, and there's degrees to it, and more people are realizing that now because, you know, the fact that you guys are in Colombia and I'm in San Diego, but yet we're all here together at the same time, the technologies that we have, which are still very nascent, these are new technologies still, you know, as compared to 50 years from now, 100 years. I have no idea, but if we can just imagine what that's going to be like, the integration, you know, whatever that's going to be, if it's holograms or whatever. But, you know, the fact is that we're connected right here, whereas a decade ago, we wouldn't have even been able to connect at all, right? And so the distance is less and less, and we have a world where it's a global community. And, you know, the problems that individuals face is also the same problems that society faces. And as we just have a mindset that's not so focused on, okay, how am I going to make ends meet today? Where am I going to find enough money so I can eat, right? And so now you're in a chronic state of heightened kind of adrenal response if you're living that way, that you can't be at your best. So, you know, we have to also look at the economic aspects to where, is there going to be a society where people have the fundamentals, where they have enough food and clean water and shelter? That's it. Okay. Because if you have clean water and food and shelter, now you can create, because we have this creative aspect within us to be able to create. But if you take someone and you'd say, you know what, your starting point is below ground, you're below zero, and you have to use all your energy just to get to living, you know, because you don't even have clean water and you don't even have clean food and you don't even have a place to sleep. And you have to worry about where you're sleeping, if maybe somebody's going to try to rob you or steal from you or kill you while you're and you know, and so, and there's a lot of people, homeless people and so on, that's their reality. And then we have those of us in the middle where we're not the elites that are making the decisions for everybody, and we're not the billionaires, but we're the working class, which is most people, you know, and we're blessed to have a house and we're blessed to have food, and now we're trying to make more, but what's it for, right? What's it for? Is it just so that at the end I can be, oh yeah, I was famous and I did this and I went to these countries and I made this much money? That's not enough for me, right? I'm not satisfied with that. Rather, we're stepping into a different world where we've transcended the limitations of what we have, and we've integrated the technologies in a way that benefits humanity, you know, so that we can function in our best selves, you know. And so again, to take that all down and kind of bring it back to where we started, it's about the physical education, because as long as this is good, that's the foundation that we can work from, and we can create from that. And yes, kettlebell, I'm a kettlebell guy. I'm associate. I love the kettlebell. I use the kettlebell. If you want to learn kettlebell, you know, I'm a great person to learn from, but it's so much more than the kettlebell, because all those principles in kettlebell are also principles that we can apply to other types of exercise and also to life.
This was awesome, Steve. Thank you. Thank you so much.